Hey guys, today I got a really good film to review. I'm going to be talking about Arrival, starring Amy Adams and Jeremy Renner. So, this film starts out with a linguistics and communications and translation expert, played by Amy Adams. She's a professor at a university. Her students' phones keep going off, and they're like, "Hey, can you turn to a news station?" And she turns it on, and then she sees, basically there are these giant ships that have landed all around the world. There are 12 ships. She's like, class dismissed, and she goes home. So basically, she is recruited like the next day by the U.S. Army, in an attempt to understand why the aliens are here. So she actually goes to the army base and she meets a theoretical physicist played by Jeremy Renner, and they're tasked with basically just trying to communicate with the aliens, kind of make first contact and figure out what their goal is and why they're here. So basically, that's kind of the exposition. There's not a whole lot of exposition, which I really like. They kind of just like get right into it. So they enter the ship with, like, a team from the military. Basically, they start to try to communicate. So she writes out the word human, and she's like, human, and they're trying to figure out if they understand and things like that. And after like one or two sessions or so, she actually takes her hazmat suit off, which they're super scared. Like, they know there's no radiation poisoning due to their the instrument that they use. Like, there's no radiation that's going to be dangerous, but everybody's like freaked out. But she feels it's necessary for communication for them to actually see her face, and hear her voice like naturally without the hazmat suit and everything. And it works. It works. They um, they start to respond more and communicate. um, it's so cool because the first time we actually like see these aliens, it's so they're like behind this glass wall, and there's like all this fog and mist, and you can't really, you can't see anything. So like the first time we see them is so cool because as they're coming into frame, like when they're getting closer, like you can tell they're getting closer. There's like, the outline is like so blurry, you can't really tell what it is. And then once they kind of come into focus, you can kind of see these big, tall, they kind of look like giant octopuses. And that was really, really cool. They never really revealed their whole body from the very beginning, which I thought was pretty cool. And it was just like so interesting. It's intriguing because when they started to communicate, they have these tentacles, and they kind of like sprayed out this. It looked like ink, like an octopus would like squirt out ink, but it was kind of like a gas almost, and that's how they were forming their symbols and letters. And after each session, they would kind of take these symbols. They take pictures. This was all being recorded, so she would speak or say something, and then the aliens would reply with a symbol of their own. After each session, they would kind of, take that back to camp and interpret it, try to figure out like what it means. And eventually, we actually do hear they end up calling them septopods because they have 7 feet. So they kind of look like octopuses on Earth, but they are way bigger and they have 7 feet. So they call them septopods or heptapods. And so basically, they actually do hear them speak. And it's just like this really low, bellowing type of sound, which is so interesting. So you have these series of studies, kind of, where they're just asking the aliens thing, the heptapods. They're asking them. They're trying to receive information. They're just communicating back and forth, and it's really quite interesting. And then they throw in a little bit of story from like the other world nations around the world. Like China, how is their progress? Russia and things like that. Because it really is like a race against time. Because I think China's government eventually sees him as a threat, and so they're like planning this attack, to just like blast them out of the sky because their ships are hovering. So it's very intriguing. It's very interesting. We always are getting flashbacks as well from Amy Adams' perspective. Her and her daughter. We see her when her daughter's born, and we also see her when her daughter is seemingly very sick and dying. We keep seeing these flashbacks from Amy Adams' perspective. And, eventually, the humans don't really understand. They misinterpret something that the aliens say um, about a weapon, right? They say that the aliens have said that they have some type of weapon and that they're going to use it. And basically Amy Adams figures out, okay, what they're saying about a weapon, it may have been misinterpreted. So she's like, you guys can't attack. The base they were gonna basically pull out of the site, and they were going to like start an offensive, whereas China was like already ahead of that. Like they were ready to go and go to war. But Amy Adams figures out that they're not here to destroy us. But it gets really interesting because at the end here, we kind of find out that Amy Adams, strangely enough, the visions that she was seeing were actually from the future, and she actually so there's this scene where it's like this global peace summit with like the UN, and you have all these flags there, and you can see this flag from the heptapods, right? So it's like kind of a global peace type summit, and the alien flag is there along with like China and Russia and all the rest of the world. And the Chinese president is like, I'll never forget what you said to me that day. And she's like, what did I say? What did I say? Like, she doesn't know because she's seeing the future. But in the present day, she's like, I don't know what I said. So basically, she has to try and figure out what she said to the Chinese president so that he stops the attack. And she has to grab a phone, and she has to make a call to like the Chinese president, and it's his personal number, and there's no way anybody would ever know his personal number like in the United States. And basically she tells him over the phone what his wife said on his deathbed, and of course in the future, and that convinces him that she has had contact with the aliens, and he knows that she's telling the truth, that they're here to help. And basically he stops the attack, and that's kind of where it ends. We actually see that there is a scene at the end where uh, Jeremy Renner and Amy Adams decide to have a child. And it's so interesting. It's so cool because this whole time before we found out that she was receiving messages from the future, before she could see the future, we thought that these were flashbacks of her and her daughter, and that her father had left. But it turns out that the daughter hadn't been born yet. So her and Jeremy Renner, they have the child, they raise the child, and that's kind of where they ended. We still don't know exactly why the aliens were here. They kind of reference that in about 1 or 2,000 years that the aliens, the heptapods, will need the humans' help with something. But other than that, we don't know why they're here, which is fine with me because it doesn't have to be like a concrete ending with like some revelation that we just have to know why they're here. Like it's you can leave it up to interpretation. There's always room for a sequel. So honestly, this film is so good. It is a 10 out of 10, and there's not even any action in this film. It's just a very interesting story. Series of events, research, a lot of cool linguistic stuff, and just figuring out how these aliens communicate and why they're here. And it is such an intriguing story. I would certainly recommend this film. Again, it is like a 10 out of 10, and you should definitely check it out.